When we hear the word genius, most of us think of extraordinary individuals like Albert Einstein, Leonardo da Vinci, or Marie Curie, people whose names are synonymous with brilliance and breakthrough thinking. It's easy to assume that genius is something rare, genetic, and unreachable for the average person. But what if genius isn't just about IQ scores or natural-born talent? What if it's a way of thinking, a mindset that can be learned, cultivated, and refined? The truth is, you don't need to be a prodigy to think like a genius. Even if you feel average, adopting certain mental habits can help you unlock extraordinary levels of creativity, insight, and problem-solving ability. 1. Cultivate relentless curiosity. Geniuses are, above all, curious. They question everything, assumptions, systems, limitations, and never stop asking why. Or what if? Whether it's Einstein pondering time and space, or a child pulling apart a toy to see how it works, the drive to understand is fundamental. If you want to think like a genius, start feeding your curiosity instead of ignoring it. Read widely, explore different subjects, talk to people outside your usual circles, and pursue answers that aren't obvious. Curiosity isn't about always knowing what you're looking for. It's about staying open to discovering something unexpected. Train yourself to follow rabbit holes, not for the sake of productivity, but for the sake of wonder. This mindset leads to connections that most people never make, which is the essence of genius thinking. 2. Embrace mental flexibility. Average thinkers tend to cling to what they know. Genius thinkers, on the other hand, are comfortable changing their minds. They consider new evidence, rethink old conclusions, and pivot when necessary. This is called cognitive flexibility, the ability to shift thinking, entertain opposing viewpoints, and explore multiple possibilities at once. To build this muscle, challenge your own beliefs regularly. Try arguing the opposite side of a viewpoint you strongly hold. Read ideas you disagree with. Solve problems in unconventional ways. The more you practice mental flexibility, the more creative and original your thinking becomes. Genius often arises not from having the right answers, but from asking better questions and seeing familiar things in unfamiliar ways. 3. Learn to love deep work. One thing that separates genius-level output from average effort is the capacity for deep, focused work. Geniuses tend to become obsessed with a problem or idea and immerse themselves in it for hours, days, or even years. While popular culture may portray flashes of inspiration, most breakthroughs are the result of sustained attention and deep concentration. This kind of focus is rare in a world of distractions, but it's a skill you can train. Set aside blocks of time to work without interruptions. Turn off notifications. Go deep on one idea rather than jumping between many. Practice boredom. Let your mind get quiet enough that deeper insights can surface. Mastering deep work is like building a forge for your best thinking. 4. Welcome failure as feedback. If there's one myth that holds many people back from thinking like a genius, it's the fear of failure. Genius thinkers treat failure not as a verdict, but as feedback. Thomas Edison famously said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." This perspective is crucial. The average thinker tends to avoid mistakes and stick to what's safe. The genius embraces risk, experimentation, and even public setbacks. Why? Because they see each failure as data, a necessary part of learning, growth, and ultimately innovation. To adopt this mindset, reframe how you see failure in your own life. When something doesn't go as planned, ask, what did I learn? What would I try differently? What does this reveal that I didn't know before? The more comfortable you become with failure, the more resilient and creative your thinking will be. 5. Combine ideas from different domains. Some of the most iconic breakthroughs in history came from merging unrelated fields. Steve Jobs combined technology with design and liberal arts. Da Vinci blended anatomy with art. Einstein was deeply influenced by music. Geniuses often operate at the intersection of disciplines, connecting dots that others don't even see. This is called combinatory play, a term borrowed from Einstein himself. The more diverse your inputs, books, experiences, conversations, the more raw material your brain has for making original combinations. So if you're a software engineer, study poetry. If you're a musician, read physics. Cross-pollination of ideas creates fertile ground for genius. But this kind of thinking also requires you to resist being overly specialized. Modern society often pushes people to go deep in one narrow area, but genius often arises from the depth of synthesis. the ability to bring together seemingly unrelated ideas into something novel and powerful. 6. Develop a tolerance for ambiguity. Thinking like a genius often means living in uncertainty. Many people are uncomfortable not knowing the answer or being in limbo. But geniuses are willing to sit with ambiguity. They are patient with problems that don't have quick solutions, and they resist the urge to reduce complexity too soon. This quality is crucial in science, art, and life. Whether you're trying to write a novel, solve a technical problem, or understand a philosophical question, being okay with not knowing can open the door to deeper insight. In a world that values instant answers, the ability to think slowly and tolerate ambiguity is a superpower. So how do you develop this? Start by noticing when you're rushing to conclusions just to feel certainty. Practice holding multiple possibilities in your mind without needing to collapse them into a single answer. Reflect instead of reacting. Genius lives in the space between what we know and what we're still learning. 7. Make time for reflection and solitude. In our hyperconnected world, silence and solitude are rare, and yet they are essential for genius-level thinking. Deep insights often emerge in moments of stillness, when your mind is free from external noise. Whether it's a walk without your phone, journaling in the morning, or simply staring out a window, solitude gives your thoughts room to breathe. Most people avoid solitude because it forces them to confront their own thinking. But this is exactly why it's powerful. Reflection allows you to process ideas, integrate learning, and discover patterns. It's where unconscious connections rise to the surface. Make space in your life for silence, not as a luxury, but as a necessity for deep thought. And remember, solitude is not isolation. Geniuses often have rich conversations, collaborate with others, and engage in the world, but they also protect time alone to synthesize what they've absorbed. This balance between external input and internal processing is the heartbeat of creative thinking. 8. Think in models, not just facts. Another trait of genius thinkers is their ability to operate at a higher level of abstraction. They don't just accumulate facts, they build mental models. A model is a simplified framework that helps explain how something works. For example, Darwin's model of natural selection, Newton's laws of motion, or even the economic concept of supply and demand. All of these help people understand, predict, and manipulate complex systems. Average thinking often involves memorizing disconnected pieces of information. Genius thinking looks for the underlying structure. It asks, what's the pattern here? What rules or principles are at play? Can I apply this elsewhere? This model-based thinking allows geniuses to transfer insights across fields, solve problems faster, and see things that others overlook. To cultivate this skill, don't just ask what something is. Ask how it works and why it matters. Look for principles behind events. When you learn something new, try explaining it in your own words or visualizing it as a system. Over time, you'll develop a toolbox of mental models that sharpen your decision-making and deepen your understanding of the world. 9. Use visualization and mental rehearsal. Many high-performing minds, athletes, inventors, and scientists alike, rely on vivid mental imagery to simulate outcomes and refine ideas. Einstein was known to conduct elaborate thought experiments entirely in his mind, imagining what it would be like to ride on a beam of light. Nikola Tesla visualized his inventions in such detail that he claimed he didn't need to build prototypes to know whether they would work. Visualization is a powerful tool because the brain treats imagined experiences similarly to real ones. Practicing this technique trains your creativity, improves problem solving, and enhances focus. Start simple. Visualize your day before it begins. Mentally rehearse difficult conversations or challenging tasks. If you're working on a creative idea, imagine how it would function in the real world. Engage all your senses when you do this. What does it look like, sound like, feel like? With regular practice, you'll build a sharper and more dynamic mental playground for your genius to thrive in. 10. Surround yourself with stimulating people. Geniuses don't think in a vacuum. They are often part of vibrant intellectual or creative circles that challenge and inspire them. The famous Bloomsbury Group, the Inklings, or the interdisciplinary team at Bell Labs, all examples of how being around the right people accelerates genius. The company you keep has a massive influence on how you think. If you're constantly around people who complain, stay comfortable, or resist change, your mind will unconsciously mirror those patterns. On the other hand, if you regularly engage with people who ask provocative questions, experiment boldly, and explore complex ideas, you'll naturally begin to think more expansively. Seek out mentors, collaborators, or communities where high-level thinking is encouraged. This doesn't mean everyone has to be brilliant, just that they're curious, growth-oriented, and willing to engage in meaningful dialogue. Iron sharpens iron, and your mental world is shaped by the conversations you allow yourself to have. 11. Ask bigger questions. One of the simplest ways to start thinking like a genius is to ask better questions, not just of others, but of yourself. Instead of what's the answer, ask what are the possibilities. Instead of what do I already know, ask what am I missing. Geniuses don't settle for surface-level understanding. They dig, and then they dig deeper. They ask questions that challenge assumptions, provoke curiosity, and open up new lines of thought. These questions often don't have quick answers, and that's the point. The act of wrestling with big questions stretches your cognitive and creative capacity. Try making a habit of journaling powerful, open-ended questions at the end of each day. Questions like, what if the opposite of this idea were true? What am I avoiding thinking about? What would this problem look like in a different context? What kind of solution would seem impossible, but still worth imagining? These types of questions don't just stimulate thinking, they create space for insights to emerge. 12. Act on your insights. Genius is not only about having brilliant thoughts, it's about applying them. Ideas without action are just daydreams. What sets apart people who seem smart from those who produce remarkable results is the willingness to turn insight into execution. This often means being bold, taking initiative, and risking being wrong. It means experimenting, building, writing, testing, sharing. Geniuses act before they feel fully ready. They trust their vision enough to put it into the world, even if it's imperfect. Don't wait for external validation or perfect conditions. When you have an idea that feels important or intriguing, take a step. Write it down. Sketch a rough version. Have a conversation about it. Each small act of execution builds momentum and reveals the next layer of the idea. This is where average thinkers often fall short. They underestimate the importance of momentum. Genius thinkers understand that insight plus action creates impact. 13. Train your attention like a laser. In a world dominated by noise, those who control their attention hold a serious advantage. Genius thinkers understand that how and where you focus your mental energy determines the quality of your thoughts. While most people allow their attention to be hijacked by emails, notifications, or endless scrolling, geniuses protect and direct theirs deliberately. This isn't just about discipline. It's about understanding attention as a finite cognitive resource. You can't think deeply if your mind is constantly darting between distractions. You can't connect complex ideas if your thoughts are fragmented. Genius-level thinking happens in states of sustained, high-quality focus, often called flow. To train your attention, practice mindfulness or meditation regularly. Use techniques like the Pomodoro method to build endurance. Ruthlessly eliminate low-value distractions from your environment. Create rituals for entering deep work states, like specific music, lighting, or a dedicated workspace. Over time, your brain becomes more skilled at entering states of immersion. And it's in these moments, when time disappears and thought flows, that genius ideas are born. 14. Think in time horizons beyond the immediate. The average thinker is often locked into short-term concerns, deadlines, trends, next week's problems. Genius thinkers zoom out. They think in terms of years, decades, even centuries. They ask questions like, what are the long-term consequences of this idea? How will this shape the future? What will still matter 100 years from now? This kind of long-term vision opens up deeper levels of strategic thinking. It's what allowed people like Elon Musk to bet on space travel when everyone else was focused on social media. It's how writers like George Orwell or Aldous Huxley predicted societal patterns that are still relevant today. To adopt this mindset, train yourself to look past the urgency of now. Develop a habit of long-range planning. Study history and project its lessons into the future. Ask yourself, if I were thinking 10x bigger or 10x farther into the future, what would I do differently? Genius doesn't just emerge from intelligence, it emerges from scale. Thinking beyond your immediate reality changes the scope and ambition of your thoughts. 15. Protect the weird part of your mind. There's a part of your mind that's strange, nonlinear, playful, irrational, and utterly creative. It's the part that comes up with bizarre metaphors, impossible inventions, and spontaneous insights. Genius thinkers not only accept this part of their minds, they nurture it. The average person often suppresses these odd or whimsical thoughts, dismissing them as irrelevant or embarrassing. But these are often the seeds of breakthroughs. The boundary-pushing idea, the paradigm shift, the artistic vision, they usually start in this weird, raw, intuitive space. Protect it. Make time for play, imagination, and creative experimentation with no purpose. Doodle in a notebook. Build things that don't make sense. Watch or read things that confuse you. Embrace ambiguity and randomness. Let your mind wander without judgment. Your weirdness is often where your genius hides. 16. Practice mental endurance. While bursts of insight are exciting, most meaningful ideas take time to develop. Genius-level thinking often involves sticking with problems longer than anyone else is willing to. This requires stamina, not just physical but cognitive endurance. Mental endurance is the ability to sit with a difficult concept, revisit an unsolved problem, revise an idea for the 10th time, or refine your thoughts over months or years. It's what makes a great physicist return to an experiment dozens of times, or a novelist write 20 drafts before publishing. To build mental endurance, take on intellectually demanding tasks and push yourself to finish them. Break large, complex goals into smaller sprints and track progress. Develop routines that encourage consistency, not just intensity. Accept boredom and frustration as part of the process. When others give up, your endurance becomes your competitive advantage. Genius isn't always faster. It's often just more persistent. 17. Deliberately shape your environment. Your environment either amplifies or suppresses your thinking. Geniuses tend to design their surroundings with intention. This includes everything from the books on their shelves to the people they interact with to the colors on their walls. Steve Jobs famously took long walks for his best meetings. Maya Angelou rented a bare hotel room to write in. Nikola Tesla worked in darkness to enhance his visual imagination. These aren't quirks, they're intentional designs that support the way their minds worked best. Start by examining your own space. Does it invite deep thought or distract you? Does your digital environment, apps, tabs, feeds, support or sabotage your focus? Do your habits and routines make space for reflection and creation? Even subtle changes, like lighting, clutter, or sound, can have massive impacts on your mental clarity. Genius thrives in environments that are aligned with your cognitive needs. 18. Obsess over learning how to learn. Here's a hidden truth. Most geniuses aren't born with superior knowledge. They're just far better at acquiring it. They're obsessed with learning how to learn faster, deeper, and more effectively than others. They experiment with different learning systems, question how memory works, analyze their own cognitive patterns, and constantly iterate on how they study or absorb information. You can do the same. Study techniques like spaced repetition, active recall, Feynman technique, interleaving, teaching others what you've learned. Treat your brain like software, constantly updating its learning OS. The faster and more effectively you learn, the more ideas you'll generate, and the faster your insights compound. Learning how to learn isn't a productivity hack. It's a foundation of genius. 19. Master the art of simplification. Genius thinking isn't about making things more complicated. It's about making the complex simple without being simplistic. True brilliance lies in the ability to take a dense, abstract, or confusing idea and express it clearly and elegantly. Einstein once said, "If you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough." Average thinkers often hide behind jargon or complexity. Geniuses, on the other hand, seek clarity, not to dumb things down, but to sharpen them. They reduce an idea to its essence without losing its depth. This is what allows them to communicate powerfully, teach effectively, and influence others. To build this skill, after learning something new, try explaining it in one sentence. Use metaphors and analogies to make abstract ideas relatable. Always ask, what is the core truth here? Avoid bloated language, aim for precision. When you can distill an idea to its cleanest form, you gain power over it. Simplification is not the end of thinking, it's the proof of deep thinking. 20. Stay humble. Genius is a practice, not a title. Perhaps the most important mindset of all is humility. Real genius isn't arrogant. It doesn't seek status or superiority. It seeks truth. Geniuses remain students, always aware of how much they don't know. Their confidence doesn't come from being the smartest in the room, but from being endlessly committed to learning more. This humility is what keeps genius thinkers growing. It prevents complacency. It fuels curiosity. And it protects against ego, which is one of the quickest killers of original thinking. So if you want to think like a genius, remember, it's not about becoming one and wearing that as a label. It's about showing up each day with the mindset that growth is infinite, learning is lifelong, and insight is earned through effort. The good news: genius is not some static state or divine spark that you either have or don't. It's a process, and it's available to anyone willing to think more deeply, act more boldly, and learn more persistently than the world expects. Final thoughts. You may feel average now, but genius thinking has nothing to do with how you feel. It has everything to do with how you train your mind. If you cultivate curiosity, practice focus, embrace failure, and dedicate yourself to deep learning, you are already walking the path that so many great minds have walked before you. In a world that moves fast and thinks shallow, those who dare to slow down and think deeply will always have an edge. Genius isn't lightning, it's practice. And it's not reserved for a chosen few. It's built by those who choose to think differently. So don't wait for permission. Start thinking like a genius, even if you feel average. Because genius doesn't begin with brilliance. It begins with intention.